Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to 24K Movies and Reviews. Welcome to the Game Dojo. I am your host, the Game Ninja, and this is the month of horror, Halloween. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. So in 24K's Movies, Reviews, and TV shows, we are happy to bring to you another exciting film that scared the living hell out of me when I was a kid. That's right, none other than Return of the Living Dead, that O'Bannon special. Now, let me just start off by saying, this movie, as a kid, scared the living hell out of me. I'm telling you. The fact that it said, inspired by true events on the front of the movie when it first comes on, to the fact of how the pace goes, and these are not no Romero zombies, ladies and gentlemen. No. These things do not slowly walk. These things are running full speed. And let me let you know, there's nothing scarier than something that's dead, that can't die, that's running at you at full speed, willing to rip you apart and bite into you. Especially in the dozens and hundreds and thousands. That is terrifying. Absolutely terrifying, ladies and gentlemen. So, the movie starts as we're treated to Frank and Freddy working in a UNITA supply company. It's a medical supply company, and they're just going back and forth, and they're talking to each other. One of the main protagonists in the film, which is Frank and Freddy, they're just, having their normal conversation, about life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, when all of a sudden, Frank tells him, "Hey, did you ever see that movie, Night of the Living Dead?" That's right, they actually reference it in here. They speak about it as if it's a real incident. So, Freddy is like, "Okay, yeah, I saw that movie." He was like, "Did you know that was based on a true story?" And he's like, "Come on, man, what are you talking about?" It's like, "No, I'm serious. They had to change the name and the faces and the things around, or they would get sued. But yeah, that actually really happened. The chemical is called 2,4-trioxin. 2,4-trioxin. That's right." And he was like, "Wait a minute, are you serious?" And he was just like, "Yeah, we've got those canisters here in the basement." So you're looking at Freddy's face saying, "Oh, come on, man. That's bullshit." And Frank says, "Hey, you want to see him?" Yeah, exactly. Because nothing can go wrong following this statement that you just found out that your boss is literally telling you that it's real. He has the chemical with the actual cadavers down in the basement. Okay. So, like a Nimrod, Freddy follows him into the basement. They both walk up to the container, and they're sitting there wiping the container back and forth. And all of a sudden, Freddy asks, "Hey, these things don't leak, do they?" And Frank says, "No, these are made by the Corps Army engineers." Smacks the canister, and out comes the chemical. And now Freddy and Frank are subject to the chemical. And this is where the shit hits the fan. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The shit hits the fan. So after being knocked out for God knows how long, and there's no explanation why Tarman doesn't go after them, except for the fact that maybe he smelled the chemical on them and he saw them as dead. It's the only other thing I can think of. But the story goes on because Freddy has friends. That's right. Freddy's friends are all there, and they're going to pick him up because Freddy knows the greatest parties and the greatest places to go. Well, not tonight, unfortunately. This is also where we get to see the vivacious Linnea Quigley, who does the infamous graveyard dance scene later on in the movie, which I will not show on my channel. Sorry, guys. Even though it's censored, won't show it. Freddy's girlfriend as well is Crash and Suicide and Scuzz. And even that guy, you might recognize him from Friday the 13th as the Enchilada guy. Juana Man. Yeah, he's been in a lot of horror movies, so this one was no different. He was here, and of course, well, it ensues. So I digress. As the movie goes on, I'm not going to be a verbatim here. Freddy and Frank are treated to the first zombie of the film, a yellow cadaver in storage, and they know he's dead. So they end up calling their boss, Ernie. So Ernie comes down, and the first thing he says to Frank is, "You what? You open it? You dumbass, didn't I tell you not to go near those things?" And unfortunately, that would have saved this entire night had he listened, but unfortunately, no, it doesn't happen. So he said, "So this guy in the freezer, are you sure he's dead?" And one of the things I love in horror movies and movies period is realistic reactions. And the realistic reaction of this one was just absolutely on point. So he says, "Are you sure this thing in the freezer is dead?" And Frank turns to him and says, "Why don't you open it and find out?" One of my favorite lines in this movie. No, I'll take your word for it. So he talks them into both to getting in place to kill this thing. Freddy to open the door and Frank to hit him with the bat. But as the zombie runs out, he runs for nobody but Ernie. He runs right for Ernie. No, Bert. He runs right for Bert. I think. I'm confusing my own shit here. Anyway, I guess because the two smell like the chemical, the zombies don't want nothing to do with them. So that's a good thing, but a bad thing at the same time, because you're dying. So you have camouflage, but you're dying. So there you go. So as the movie moves forward, the Freddy's friends decide they would have a nice fine time in the graveyard, and they would have a party until Freddy gets off. Now, another thing that always weirded me out is they said, "I'm not waiting." They said Freddy gets off at 10. He says, "I'm not waiting 2 hours for Freddy to get off," which means wherever this is, it's 2 hours away from 10 o'clock at night, and it's broad daylight. So that's weird. That's definitely weird. So anyway, as they're partying in the graveyard, Linnea Quigley is taking off her clothes and, dancing and rubbing all over Spooky. They go and look up Ernie's help. Ernie's help, yeah. Ernie is the mortician, which I think he's a Nazi soldier who's hiding out here in the morgue. There's a lot to that effect. If you look in the background on his desk, the Hitler memorabilia and things like that, it's pretty weird. It's pretty freaking weird. But yeah, I digress. It's there. So they say, "Hey man, we need you to help burn something." And he says, "Well, what is it?" And he says, "Rabbit weasels." And he said, "Okay, so let's take him outside and shoot him first." And he's like, we can't take him outside and shoot him." He's like, "Why not?" He's like, "You gotta trust me on this one." So of course they tell him, "Can you keep a secret?" And now he's like, "Wait a minute, what the hell is going on?" So they pull an arm out the bag. The arm grabs his leg and he freaks out and goes crazy. Of course it rips off his pant leg. And now he's on board with the shit show. So he decides to take the body parts in there and burn them up, which they all do. And the really sad part is this is the beginning of an even more shittier situation, because as he burns them up, the smoke goes into the sky with the chemical down into the graveyard where they are, and the situation goes from even bad to worse. So yeah, then we get to the point where, let me see if I can get you there for a quick second. So now Freddy and Frank are feeling the effects of this chemical. So as they're really feeling it bad, they decide to go to the morgue area and call the paramedics, because both of them have been poisoned. Which it leads to one of the most interesting scenes I've ever seen in a zombie movie. The reason why I said this movie is brilliant, because it has comedy, it has moments of levity. If you haven't noticed, I'm wearing the mask because when a skull comes out of the graveyard, "Do you wanna party?" Yeah, that's that. Yeah. So anyway, as the ambulance comes and checks on Freddy and Frank, which is really bad, they say you have no pupillary response, your blood pressure is 0/0, and your temperature is 70 degrees, which is room temperature. So he asked them, "What does that mean?" He said, "Well, that's a puzzle, because technically you're not alive, but you're conscious, so we don't know what it means." So basically, if you don't get hold of it by now in the story, Frank and Freddy are turning into zombies. They're dying. So the chemical kills and brings them back. So now we have an all-out problem, because not only is Freddy and Frank a problem, but now the chemical that went into the ground has brought up pretty much everybody in the graveyard. You're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of dead people. There's also where we're introduced to Tarman, which unfortunately Freddy's girlfriend, she gets the first view of him, and we figure out that these things are not just mindless zombies. He even knows how to hook a chain up to the door and crank it open to get her brains. Yes, ladies and gentlemen. So these things are not your dead, no brain zombies. These things are intelligent, scared, they're fat. Well, not scared, they're scary, but they're fast and they'll kill you and eat you as soon as they find you. So basically what ends up happening, and I'll digress by going forward, is she runs away, they all run away into the graveyard, and this is where they find the graves have been emptied by all the zombies, and now all hell has broken loose. That's right. So they seek the only refuge they can at the mortuary, where Frank, Ernie, and Bert, that's right, Ernie and Bert, and a director says that there was no correlation in Ernie and Bert, it just happened that way. Really? Really? I don't think so. But I digress. So anyway, now that they're here all together with Frank, Freddie, Ernie, and Bert, and all their friends, we have lost Linnea Quigley, who, when she was in the graveyard, we're talking about being eaten alive by men. This is exactly what happens to her. She's eaten alive by men, and she comes back. So she's just naked for the rest of the movie, but she's terrifying as a pale, white monster biting into people's heads like an apple. It's scary. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me pop this off my head. There we go. That's better. So, anyway, where's me old glasses? Me old spectacles. Spectacles. There we go. Spectacles. So, like I said, as we're in here now, this is where the climax of the story happens. She comes in here, she sees Frank, she sees Bert, she sees everything, and she wonders what happened, this is the point where they have been seen killing the paramedics, and then even one of the zombies gets on the microphone and says, send more paramedics. So it gets even worse, because not only can they talk, they're bringing other people to their location. Like I said, this is something that has never been done before, and as far as I know, this is the first movie to coin the phrase brains when zombies want to come and kill you. I don't think any other movie before had anything to do with brains. So when you think of the synonymous brains now, when you think of zombies, I want to eat your brains, the first thing that comes to mind better be Return of the Living Dead, because this was the first movie that coined that phrase, that they're going after brains. And it's insane, but this was magic. O'Bannon magic, I'm telling you. O'Bannon and Russo. So they decide to go around the place, and they decide to board up the entire mortuary, which is where they're going to make their stand, because they realize everybody who comes in this place is going to be killed and eaten. Even the police who have come in has been killed and eaten. So they don't have a plan for what's going on besides trying to get out of here. Now, Freddie and Frank are locked in the chapel, because if they turn, they don't want to have to deal with them and what's going on out there. Tina, who wants to stay with Freddie, decides to go inside the chapel like a dumbass, and we all know this is like the worst decision. There's no coming back from this. We know what happens to Tina. So as they're talking and arguing, our friend Scuzz here gets bit by a zombie trying to board up something, and when he's bit trying to board up something right here in this scene, he loses his head and that sweet mohawk, because now he's dead. But it also affords them a lesson. Bert and Ernie decide that this female zombie, half a zombie, they want to get information from, which she can talk. So she says actually one of the most prophetic things you probably ever heard in a zombie movie. They ask her why brains, and she says the pain of being dead. So he said it hurts to be dead, and he asked her again, why brains? She was like, it stops the pain of being dead. It makes the pain go away, which is something we're never treated to before this point when it comes to frame and reference of zombies. And as far as I know, we're never treated to that again. Even in the subsequent movies after this that were basically cartoonish, one in particular I did like, Part 3, Return of the Living Dead Part 3. If you don't know, the hot chick with the red hair and all the spikes and stuff when she was becoming a zombie, that was just, I don't know. It made me feel bad about myself being attracted to a dead woman. It really did. Not to mention she has nothing but metal spikes and rods and stuff coming out of her. But I don't know, man. It's just something in the DNA. It was hot. She was a hot zombie. There it is. It's a confession. My name is Rain, and I had the hots for a dead girl in Return of the Living Dead 3. But I can't be the only one, because all I hear is about that hot naked girl, the nipple scenes, her killing everybody else, but everybody cosplays and talks about that hot zombie chick, so I can't be the only one. Now, she's a different kind of hot from Linnea Quigley in this movie. Linnea Quigley in this movie, I would say she was hot, naked, but when she became a zombie, that shit went out the door. There was no attraction to her at all. Like, when she was walking up to the dead bum, I say the dead bum because he was dead from the moment he was walking around. He just didn't know it yet. She walks up, and you're like, hey, she looks kind of naked. That's pretty cool. And then this thing with this gigantic open mouth just jumps up and bites his head like an apple. And from that point on, neither sexy or nudity can save what she is. She's just freaking scary. So anyway, if I can get past that point, what ends up happening is Frank and Spider Frank and Spider decide that they're going to go and see if they can get help. But it's too many zombies out there in the parking lot, so they decide, you know what, we just need to bail because there's so many that they're just like, we can't save them. We have to leave them. We can turn the car over to the police and send help for them, but we cannot stay here. Which kind of screws Tina and Ernie because they're left behind, but on the same token, what else are you going to do? So this gigantic metal door, which for some reason doesn't hold with a normal guy banging against it, which I have no idea why it doesn't, forces Ernie and Tina to go up into the attic to get away from Freddy, which Freddy is in here making a fool of himself. And there's a bunch of things that I don't like about this scene. The reason why I don't like this scene is because, first of all, how does Freddy get through that solid metal door with all those locks on it? But I digress. Let's go away from that. Then they crawl up the ladder into the ceiling, and the ladder falls on the ground. Freddy, who can't see because he's been burned with acid and his face is half melted off, finds a ladder, stands it up, can hear perfectly, and climb up to bang on the attic door. First of all, when I climbed up, that ladder would have been coming with me. I mean, he couldn't see, so there's no way he could have made his way over to the ladder that quick. That ladder would have been up with me, period. 100% would have been up with me. But I digress. You needed a point to keep going, so that's where it went. Meanwhile, the other people, Bert, Spider, and the two love queens who are trapped in the Unita Supply warehouse get a brilliant idea of going into the basement because they got to get to that phone, and that's the only phone that works. But they tell him about the tar man, so he's just at this point, well, we're just going to knock his damn block off. It's only one of them. So they do that, and they make their way down to the basement, which is where the final chapter of this movie ensues. They make it down to the basement, and this is where they see a number stenciled on the side of the tank. Now, the reason why I didn't speak about the military thing of this aspect from the beginning, because it wasn't in the theatrical version, the beginning scene. But basically, the military has been looking for this container for years. And he had it in his warehouse in the bottom, and he could have called any time and told them that this is where it was, and this incident would not have happened. They would have been partying, having fun. It would have been another great night for Freddy and his crew and Tina and everybody else, and Scuzz and Crash and Suicide and everybody. This would have been a Spider. This would have been a great night. But unfortunately, now he calls the number. And the number patches through to the general from the beginning of the movie who's been looking for them. The one who drops the line on his wife. She says, I made your favorite for dinner, lamb chops. And he says, I had lamb chops for lunch. And he just like basically walks by her cold as shit. Like, it was a fucked up line. But I get why they put it in there, because they wanted you to see that there was a contingency, and that the story that Frank and Freddy were talking to each other had weight, and it was true. So the contingency plan that they have from the general, this is him, he's woken up after they say Mr. Wilson, which it's funny, there's so many names called back to old things. Mr. Wilson, Dennis the Menace. Anyway, he figures out the location of this place, and he tells them they seem to have been waiting for this, like they have some kind of contingency plan, which they do, but the contingency plan involves a nuke. Yeah, that was the contingency plan. When they figured out how many areas and acres the cemetery covered and how many of them there were, and they were being confirmed by the local police department, this was their only thought process. And the only thought process is, we're going to blow them to hell. Which ends up happening because basically They blow the living hell out of the city, but then you're treated to the same effect of the fires burning, sending the chemical up into the air again and having it coming down on other local cemeteries in the area and on people, which means the situation is just growing. You can't destroy this by fire. There has to be another form of containment, like they did in the beginning. Find all the contaminated ones, lock them away in containers, you know, put them on ice, freeze them. Like what happened basically in the beginning happens again. So we are never treated to the aftermath of what happened after this movie, which I would have loved to see part 2 follow. Basically a worldwide zombie outbreak, but we were never treated to that, which it's a loss. It is a loss. But this movie is one of the, I would say, one of the best and one of my favorite movies at the same time. Yeah, that's the part where they show you in the end where they're going by the graves. And then, believe it or not, this is the same exact footage from the beginning of the movie, which basically it's exactly the same. And then the "Do You Want to Party" skeleton pops up. Yeah. So, Return of the Living Dead. It scared me a lot as a kid because the true events and it truly happening, and there's just so much to it, lore to it, that really makes your skin crawl. And it's done right. Even though it's done with the right amount of comedy, the subsequent sequels after this could not nail what this movie did. This movie did it, and it did it well, and it did it very well. This is, when I think of zombie movies in the month... Oh, sorry, my phone. When I think of zombie movies in the month of October, when you're doing your movie marathons and everything else, this is definitely one of, if not the zombie movie you should have in your collection to watch. The Return of the Living Dead, 1985. It doesn't get much better than this when it comes to a zombie movie. It's got levity, comedy, drama, seriousness, horror, because at certain points of it's very frightening, because you're not treated to, like I said, the zombies that just like walk slow and walk after you that you can run behind in the Romero movies. These things run by the thousands and tackle you and rip you apart. There was a scene where the ambulance drivers, the second group, comes in and they see the dead bodies, and the one tries to run back to his ambulance and he's tackled, like football tackled, by like 30 people. That's some terrifying shit, man. So, Return of the Living Dead, ladies and gentlemen. Where does it rank on our metallic scale of awesomeness here in the Game Dojo amongst 24K movies and reviews? We are going to give The Return of the Living Dead a platinum rating. Platinum rating. This deserves it if I ever knew a movie deserved a platinum rating. The gore, the story, the comedy, the levity, the drama, the horror aspects, even the most impossible things done right land. It lands in this movie, and it lands hard. Like I said, this is one of the all-time best zombie movies when it comes to the Living Dead franchise. Literally, hands down. I mean, even The Walking Dead capitalized on some of these scenes in their later seasons, and it proves it, because that's the reason why the ratings came back for a couple of those seasons, is because they used some of these aspects. Like, for instance, The Walking Dead had one scene and one scene only in a graveyard, and that graveyard scene where Jesus dies is literally one of the highest rated episodes from the later seasons, because it actually brought back the zombie genre to a whole. The graveyard, bodies coming out of the graveyard, zombies. It goes together. Why can no other people do this? I don't get it. Like I said, well, the original Night of the Living Dead started in the graveyard, and that's what I'm saying. Like, there's a creepiness already inherently to a graveyard, but adding dead bodies coming back out of the graves is peeing on yourself tension, and it's great. And I don't know why more movies don't do it. So we give this a platinum rating. This is a platinum rating, the highest rating we can give, for many reasons. And disputably, this is one of the best, even till now, zombie movies. Even the Korean zombie movies, Train to Busan and everything else, the running aspect and the thousands of zombies running, this was the forefather. This is where those ideas came from, because they were truly terrifying. Because up until this point, nobody had thought about a dead person running. Why would they? How could they? Even if their muscles were out of atrophy. It's insane. But like I said, a movie does it, and it does it correctly. So we're giving this 5 Ninja Stars out of 5, a platinum rating here in the Game Dojo with 24K movies. Thank you guys for joining me. I am not worthy of your comments, your likes, and your attention to a humble person reviewing movies, especially in the month of horror. I love horror movies, don't we all? But yeah, thank you guys. Stay tuned, because we will be doing the 31 days of Halloween. We've got much more coming for you, and I hope you enjoy them. We got some favorites, we got some news, we got some classics like here, and we're going to explore them all. Up next, we have The Thing coming up for you guys. One of my favorite aspects, and I love The Thing. Not The Thing from Another World, The Thing. But thank you from the heart of Gamer Nation, deep within Gamer Country. I am the Game Ninja. And this is 24K Movies and Reviews, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm just simply saying, thank you for joining me. I'll catch you guys later. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you, my boys and girls, next time. Happy Halloween.